he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
So here's our FCC commissioner, Brandon Carr, back in 2019. Should the government censor speech it doesn't like? Of course not. The FCC does not have a roving mandate to police speech in the name of the public interest. That's amazing. Look at him nailing it. And this is just this past February. While Biden encouraged social media companies to censor Americans, President Trump is restoring our First Amendment rights. Now the EU is pressuring our tech companies to start censoring online content again. It's important to push back on Europe's effort to silence speech. Now, I said at the time, he wasn't as visible, J.D. Vance was, that you could tell their level of sincerity by what they didn't mention and what they confined their critique of EU Digital Services Act to, like going after people praying outside of an abortion clinic while not at all mentioning all of the journalists like Richard Medhurst that have been harassed there. So here is Carr now singing a very different tune last week on Benny in the Closet.
I want to reinvigorate the public interest in. What people don't understand is that the broadcasters, and you've gotten this right, are entirely different than people that use other forms of communication. They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. And we can get into some ways that we've been trying to reinvigorate the public interest and some changes that we've seen. But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
You can do this the easy way, or we could do it the hard way. That's really up to you. It doesn't make a difference to me. I got guys on payroll. I need to keep them busy anyway. Not to be outdone in hypocrisy, here's Stephen Miller back in 2022. If the idea of free speech enrages you, the cornerstone of democratic self-government, then I regret to inform you that you are a fascist. This was Stephen Miller last week.
Let me tell you something I'd not share with anybody, but the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us.
Listen, not that I would doubt the word of a psychopath in good standing like Stephen Miller, but I would love to see that message. It would be very out of character for this guy not to share that message. If that were literally the last message he got from Charlie Kirk and he had evidence of that, I cannot imagine that this guy would not be plastering that all over the internet. I could be wrong. I'm speculating, but it seems a little convenient.
And we are going to do that under President Trump's leadership. I don't care how. It could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States, insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are doxing, that are trying to inspire terrorism, and that are committing acts of wanton violence. It has to stop. And my message is to all of the domestic terrorists in this country spreading this evil hate, you want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile, because the power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom, Sean.
Okay. This meme kind of says it all. The classic alternative buttons meme. Don't know what fascism is, knows what it is, but supports it anyway. Conservatives in the U.S. right now. Now, I got to say that's funny, but it's not entirely fair. As we will see, there are a lot of conservatives who are surprisingly speaking up. Some of them not so surprisingly, like Candace. I'm not too surprised. Ted Cruz is a surprise. So here's Donald Trump back in 2020 talking about cancel culture.
Is cancel weapons? Is cancel culture driving people from their jobs, shaming dissenters, and demanding total submission from anyone who disagrees? This is the very definition of totalitarianism. And it is completely alien to our culture and to our values. And it has absolutely no place in the United States of America.
I could not agree with 2020 Trump more. I think 2020 Trump needs to call 2025 J.D. Vance and let him know that 2020 Trump feels this way.
But you have a role too. Civil society, Charlie understood this well, is not just something that flows from the government. It flows from each and every one of us. It flows from all of us. So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out. And hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility. And there is no civility in the celebration of political assassination. Get involved. Get involved. Get involved.
So wasn't this what the conservatives were speaking against? You shouldn't be calling people's employers and cancel culture, and that's freedom of speech. Stephen Miller says you're a fascist if you don't understand that free speech is a cornerstone of democracy. You know who else 2020 Trump might want to call? 2025 Trump.
Follow up on Charlie Kirk. There's been a lot of talk about free speech this week. Do you see a difference between cancel culture and consequence culture?
I mean, your question's a little trick question. I'm a very strong person for free speech. At the same time, when you have networks that where I won an election, like in counties, I guess it's 2,600 to 525. That's called landslide. A landslide times two. When you have that level of popularity or voter support, as I did in the last election, and yet 97 and 94%, different numbers. You see different numbers with different stats, but 97, 94, 95, 96% of the people are against me in the sense of the newscasts are against me. The stories are they said 97% bad. So they gave me 97. They'll take a great story and they'll make it bad. See, I think that's really illegal, personally.
It's illegal. It's illegal for news stations to cover Donald Trump in a way that he considers unfair. And he is arguing that it is completely appropriate for the government to make decisions about what is fair and not fair, even as he lies about his own popularity. He keeps hitting lower and lower historic lows of his presidency. He just hit a new low last week. So that gives you an idea of what his idea would be of what is truthful. It's going to look like a totalitarian state media. Now, you could argue that there is this bias, and of course there is. We've covered that quite a lot. But he's talking about this on Newsmax. You know, it's not like there is not an alternate parallel universe where the facts are just as distorted, where he can go and get the narratives that he likes. And actually, those are watched by more people. So what's your problem? Now, somebody who really is surprising in all this is Rand Paul. You broke my heart, Rand. You broke my heart. Let's hear what he had to say.
I was assaulted 6-7 years ago, attacked from behind, had 6 ribs broken.
It was a man in the women's bathroom. He wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to be there either. We're not going to talk about that in this appearance.
What I suffered, they are encouraging other people to do it. And really, that ought to be taken down, and social media ought to be able to take that down. If people are saying this in their workplace, people say, oh, people have a right to say things. Well, actually, they don't necessarily have a right to say things. Many people have in their contract what we call a moral clause to their contract, or a conduct clause. My guess is you have something in your contract that says you have to behave in a certain way in public. Most people do. If you're in the military, you have a conduct code that you have to adhere to in your speech and the way you present yourself to the public. So I think it is time for this to be a crackdown on people. And like I say, it's perfectly legal and legitimate, particularly if it's part of the contract process.
That's right. And you know, it's unbelievable that it seems that it's always conservatives that are being targeted.
Wow. So this is Ken White here. Just a reminder, they were never actually against cancel culture. They were against the cancellation of people they agree with or like. They've always been enthusiastically in favor of canceling people they don't like. If you took them at their word, you're a useful idiot. Yes, fair enough. Here's Representative Clay Higgins going on a tear that makes AOC look like a great defender of liberty in the ACLU's Civil Liberties Department. I'm going to use congressional authority and every influence with big tech platforms to mandate immediate ban for life of every post or commenter that belittled the assassination of Charlie Kirk. If they ran their mouth with their smart-ass hatred, celebrating the heinous murder of that beautiful young man who dedicated his whole life to delivering respectful conservative truth into the hearts of liberal enclave universities, armed only with a Bible and a microphone and a constitution, those profiles must come down. So I'm going to lean forward in this fight, demanding that big tech have zero tolerance for violent political hate content, the user to be banned from all platforms forever. Hang on, so are you saying that speech equals violence? Is that what this conservative Republican is saying? Does speech equal violence now? Are they accepting that equation now, that speech is violence? I'm also going after their business licenses and permitting. Their businesses will be blacklisted aggressively. They should be kicked from every school, and their driver's licenses should be revoked. I'm basically going to cancel with extreme prejudice these evil, sick animals who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. I'm starting that today. That is all. Wow. That's quite a turnaround. It's like the height of George Floyd, only in reverse. Here's Brian Stelter. I asked FCC Chair Brendan Carr if he had any new comment now that ABC has pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show, and he sent me this GIF. And it's a GIF of The Office where they're pumping their hands in celebration. Here's Benny in the closet commenting on that tweet. This is me and Brendan Carr right now. Libs of TikTok, incredibly bait. Do you remember all these people just a year ago all screaming about the sanctity of the First Amendment and free speech and how terrible it was that the libs were coming after their social media platforms? There were actually, our friend Matt Taibbi did some great reporting about how, revealing in the Twitter files, how they were shadow banning conservative accounts and falsely smearing people. Seems like they're perfectly okay with that as long as it's not happening to them. This is Nico Perino. He is the executive vice president of FIRE, which in many ways has taken up the defense of the First Amendment that was once the exclusive purview of the ACLU. Brendan Carr wrote the new textbook definition of jawboning when he said of Kimmel and ABC, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And he celebrates his censorship with a lame meme, which in a sane world would be an exhibit in a lawsuit. Yeah, but they're not going to sue. You know why? Because they have a merger pending. They have a merger pending. Kimmel was the deal sweetener. And put this in the record, too. This is from an article. Wall Street Journal reported on this as well. This is from Rolling Stone. They were pissing themselves all day, one ABC insider tells Rolling Stone. In the hours leading up to the decision to pull Kimmel, two sources familiar with the matter say senior executives at ABC, Disney, and affiliates convened emergency meetings to figure out how to minimize the damage. Multiple execs felt that Kimmel had not actually said anything over the line, the two sources say, but the threat of Trump administration retaliation loomed. Obviously, ABC did not pull him off the air because of what he said. They pulled him off the air because they have a merger pending and because they're afraid of what Trump might do. So here is Candace Owens doing the Lord's work and speaking out against this. And I'm sure she despises Jimmy Kimmel, as do we. It's beside the point. It is entirely beside the point.
Chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, Brendan Carr, jumped up and he criticized Jimmy Kimmel's remarks. He threatened federal action against ABC affiliates who carried the show. What? Federal action if you carry the Jimmy Kimmel show? Does that seem right to you? Okay. Again, if you're on the right and you cheered this on, do you understand? We never, ever, ever should be applauding federal action when it comes to speech. Okay. We're all losing. We are all losing. You have to wake up. But that's what happened. Brendan Carr of the FCC was joining Benny Johnson. And that's what he said, that he absolutely wants to make sure that people are not carrying this show anymore. And that after, one of the mergers that they did, I just see the same people are constantly being empowered. And I want to point that out to you because you have to be more conscious of that. It's like they use our emotions, left versus right, to manipulate all of us. And it's completely wrong. And it's completely crazy. And they're also calling for him to make a meaningful personal donation to the Kirk family and Turning Point USA. What?
Candace Owens may not be the leader we asked for, but she's the leader we need, God damn it. But probably the most shocking voice speaking out against this was Ted Cruz. I am gonna play a good portion of his remark because he put it perfectly and explained all the angles in ways that any conservative should embrace. He's making very much the argument that we made against cancel culture for the entire time that we've had the show. We told people who embrace that, what do you think's going to happen when they come into power? What do you think they're going to do to you once you open this door? And now here we are. And Ted Cruz makes the argument against taking it up another notch.
The Federal Communication Commission is in charge of granting broadcast licenses. So ABC, NBC, CBS, they have licenses from the FCC. It is true that under statute, they're required to be in the public interest.
Yep.
What he is saying is Jimmy Kimmel was lying. That's true. He was lying. And his lying to the American people is not in the public interest. And so he threatens explicitly, we're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air so ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. And I got to say, look, I understand.
Amazing. His acting career never took off.
Is Ted Cruz working a bit? Is this Ted Cruz working a bit?
There's like an ultra viral clip of him, I think, playing it was some Shakespeare play in college.
Really?
And he has some line, I forget what the line is. People will know this. It went viral, of him doing some monologue. It was so funny. I'll try and find it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I can imagine from this how that went.
Yeah.
Dan. Jimmy Kimmel has mocked me so many times I cannot count. The corporate media, they are dishonest. They are liars. I hate what Jimmy Kimmel said. I am thrilled that he was fired. But let me tell you, if the government gets in the business of saying,
what
we
can and
don't
can't
like
say.
what you, the media, have said, we're going to ban you from the airwaves if you don't say what we like. That will end up bad for conservatives. It reminds me of, you and I are both fans of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
J.R.R. Tolkien. It reminds me of like the Ring of Power. And it is so attractive. It's sort of like conservatives are saying, wait, if we have government, we have power.
Yeah.
We can ban the media. Let me tell you what will happen. Going down this road, there will come a time when a Democrat wins again. Wins the White House.
They will get rid of every
Democrat
talk show in America that's a conservative. They'll get rid of every podcast. They'll get rid of everybody
They will
on YouTube.
silence us. They will use this power, and they will use it ruthlessly.
Yeah.
And that is dangerous. And by the way, in the Biden administration, they tried to go after and revoke Fox's license because they didn't like, and they say everything they say on Fox is hate speech. I'm sure they say everything you and I say is hate speech, is misinformation. Sure. They've defined anything counter to the leftist narrative as misinformation. Now, we just talked about Jimmy Kimmel was lying. But you know what? It's interesting. Brendan said, well, gosh, they slandered Charlie Kirk and his family. You know what? If they slandered him, there's already a remedy. There's a remedy of defamation. ABC could be sued. And by the way, you get a defamation lawsuit, you could pay millions of dollars. Let that process play out. I think it is unbelievably dangerous for government to put itself in the position of saying, we're going to decide what speech we like and what we don't, and we're going to threaten to take you off air if we don't like what you're saying. And it might feel good right now to threaten Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
But when it is used to silence every conservative in America, we will regret it. And so, again, I like Brendan Carr, but we should not be in this business. We should denounce it. It's fine to say what Jimmy Kimmel said was deplorable, it was disgraceful, and he should be off air, but we shouldn't be threatening government power to force him off air. That's a real mistake.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
I have not used that one in a while, but it fits this story very well. Yeah, man, exactly. The ACLU, which was not an organization overrun by right-wing conservatives and Nazis, famously defended the right of Nazis not only to march, but to march through Skokie, a neighborhood full of Holocaust survivors. Why did they do that? Because they understood that once you allow the principle of free speech to be compromised, that slippery slope is going to lead right back to your door. Once you allow them to censor someone you don't like, the next step is going to be censoring someone you do like. This is case in point. Who opened this door? Yes, the cancel culture left. That's why we spoke against it. We said this was going to happen, and here we are. So what do you think's going to happen if they come back into power? And you've opened the door of revoking TV licenses for misinformation. Yes, they were cuckoo running around accusing everyone of misinformation, going so far as to accuse the media accurately reporting on Joe Biden's melting brain of generating cheap fakes because they couldn't say they were fakes. They came up with a term for it. Yeah. What do you think they're going to do with this power when they get back in charge? They are absolute. Ted Cruz, these are words I've never spoken before, and I probably never will again. Ted Cruz is absolutely right, except on one thing, and this actually is instructive on part of why this is so dangerous. I don't concede the idea that even if what he said was untruthful, that he should be pulled off the air, that the government should be able to decide what is true or what is not, because that's really what you're opening the door to. Who decides? Who watches the watchmen? What he said is not even a statement of fact. It's a statement of opinion. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. He does not even say there what he is. He doesn't actually say he's MAGA.
Yeah.
He says that the MAGA movement is trying desperately to argue that he's not MAGA. That's all he said. It's a statement of an opinion about the MAGA movement. It is not a statement about whether the kid is MAGA or not. And you can see, even as Cruz is trying to climb down from this, or trying to persuade conservatives to climb down from this and to oppose this, even he will not oppose that basic framing, which is in itself false. So even if you were to accept the idea, and I do not, that the government would have this right, this is case in point of why you can't give them that power, because they're lying about the nature of what he said. That is how those kinds of codes would be enforced. It would not simply be, as some of the more chud-minded or argue, well, you don't have a right to lie on the... It's not going to stop there. Even if you accept that premise, and I do not, it will not stop there. Obviously, that's why you don't open that door.
Yeah, no, I mean, what he said, as I've said before, it was spin. Like, yeah, saying they're desperate to say this wasn't one of theirs. Yeah, are you kind of finessing the cue ball toward the side of the table where, yeah, okay, it kind of leads people to make certain assumptions? Yeah, I mean, I would say guilty of that, but that's the same kind of liberal spin that happens on these shows all the time. Sure. I mean, it's a liberal-oriented show. It's not like an egregious lie. It's not a false... Like, look, if he went out there and straight out lied, and I'm the president of ABC, I might sit him down and say, listen, you got to clean this up. I know it's a comedy show, but this was just blatantly untrue, so you got to correct it. Okay, fine. Even then, I don't think the FCC should get involved. But that's not what this was. This was spin. Now,
look,
as
Cruz says, you could sue. You could sue.
You could sue
There's
for that.
a remedy.
Right. Like if
there
someone
is a
maligns
legal
you
remedy
in that way,
that.
you could sue for that. There are other ways to deal with it. Yes, exactly.
So finally, hey, kudos. For the most part, Quillette has devolved into an outlet kind of similar to the Free Press. I wouldn't line my bird cage with it if I had a bird. But hey, this is great. I would recommend this article very highly. The post-Kirk clampdown. The current frenzy of cancel culture recalls the progressive lunacy that followed the murder of George Floyd. But the current iteration is more dangerous because it is backed by state power. Exactly. This is Patrick Frey. So we'll read a little bit of this. Earlier this week, someone remarked to me that the current cancel culture frenzy is the craziest since the lunacy of the George Floyd riots in 2020. That was a time when a center-left Nashville choral composer could be stripped of his music career for objecting when rioters vandalized his city's historic courthouse. Quote, enjoy burning it all down, you well-intentioned blind people, Daniel Elder tweeted. I'm done. A backlash followed, and his publisher handed Elder a pre-written apology that conceded he could offer no justification for his insensitive and wrongly worded post. Elder refused to sign it. As Robbie Suave reported a year later, Elder's publisher has blackballed him. Local choral directors refused to program his music for fear of provoking a backlash. They won't even let him sing in the choir. We were long told that left-wing cancel culture was the worst possible type because the left had captured the institutions of media, entertainment, and higher education. But cancel culture backed by state power is worse for two very important reasons. First, there is no competition. And second, the state has a monopoly on lawful violence. Threatening a broadcast license may not sound like a pointed gun, but if the threat is carried out, and if everyone responsible for obeying the order resists, sooner or later, someone is going to have a gun pointed in his face. Yep, that's where that goes. Where does that go? Eventually, someone's going to say no. And how do you respond to that? Do you send the troops, as has happened in many countries, as has happened in Ukraine that we support? They're going to send the troops to shut down a TV station, to shut down a newspaper. These are the things that they are gradually normalizing by putting troops on American streets, as a judge recently ruled, in clear violation of posse comitatus that does not allow the use of the military for law enforcement. They're trying to get you used to the idea that the military can come out and start rounding people up. It's starting with the immigrants. It's going to end with the dissidents, as it always does. If you look at Trump's rhetoric, what do you think he's setting you up for? How dangerous is it to have a chief executive say, yeah, they're very mean to me. They're very mean to me. They hurt my fifis. We're going to have to go after their broadcast license. And this is happening at a moment, as it would by of necessity have to be, when our institutions are so weakened that there are very few checks on his power. Even if technically a lot of what he does is illegal, there's nobody there to enforce it. The courts have been so compromised. Congress has been neutered. They're just able to get away with almost anything. There was actually in the Quillette article, they quoted someone saying what Viktor Orban did in 15 years, Donald Trump has done in a matter of months. And this is a full-on assault on constitutional democracy. This doesn't matter. Yes, we did not have a democracy. We had oligarchs basically running the show long before Donald Trump showed up. That's how we ended up getting Donald Trump. At the same time, there were certain institutional safeguards that still remained that he and his backers are busily dismantling. This is a time, look, Ted Cruz, Candace Owens speaking out against this. Tim Dillon dropped a video about this. This is a time when that shit all needs to be set aside. We need to come together and defend the right to freedom of speech.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've been on this page for the last week and a half of what a cataclysmic event this Kirk assassination was. We've seen this movie before. This is like the week after 9/11. Say, wait a minute, I have a Fourth Amendment right. Yeah, okay. You'll see how much that Fourth Amendment right does to you when you have no power. And when a cataclysmic event prompts those in power to act in ways that defy constitutional norms. All there is power at the end of the day, which is why I'm not surprised by any of this at all. I've seen some people in the space who I like a lot, and who I think are correct in the substance of what they say, but they're saying things like, wow, this is kind of strange. No, it's not. No, it's not. As soon as that news came across my feed on September 10th, I knew exactly that this stuff was going to happen. It's obvious. It's completely obvious because it's that large an event. And so, yeah, I mean, it's something you could see coming. And, in times like these, you have to be a survivor and not a martyr. So that's what I would say. I've been on that beat for the last week and a half. I'm not going to go on a 20-minute monologue about this now. Yeah, look, I mean, the good news is that Ted Cruz is saying this is wrong. So that shows you. And if you look at if you look at the data and you look at the numbers, most people are against all of this draconian shit when it comes to like even immigration. You look to immigration, which was his strongest issue. Most people are against the way his mandate has been executed in such bad faith, right? And what you have to do, all you can do in a moment like this is, yes, advocate for your First Amendment rights. It'll do you about as much good as advocating for your Fourth Amendment rights did after 9/11. Do that because it's the right thing to do, but also find that sweet spot where you like I said, you own the center of the country. Make sure you stay in the pocket of where everyone can take your side. I think that is hugely important because most people are on the free speech side of this, just like most people think ICE has gone too far. Most people think Israel is committing mass murder in Palestine. I don't know if most people are versed enough in terminology to label it genocide, but they understand it's mass murder. It's wrong, right? That's your only hope in getting through this. And it's not just a matter of voting. It's a matter of building the kind of solidarity. Look what happened when the longshoremen said, we'll cripple you if you don't give us what we want. Okay, so what if you build that kind of solidarity around issues like this? We're not going to work. If the FCC is going to start bullying people, we're not working. Like, that's what you got to do. You have to build solidarity amongst mass groups of people. And you have to do it peacefully, because you're going to get fucking thrown in a dungeon or killed if you don't. Right? So you have to do it peacefully, and you have to put in the nuts and bolts work of building that solidarity. That's the only chance you have. Is it a guarantee it's going to work? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But that's the only chance you have. Because in moments like this, power goes wild. It went wild after 9/11. It's going to go wild now, especially given the orientation of this crew, and especially who Charlie Kirk was and what he represented. So yeah, that's what I would have to say. That's my take on that. But the good news, like I said, is that opposition to this ranges from Mark Maron to Ted Cruz. So that's something.
Yep.
Please clap.